Hello, welcome to episode 212 of the Epic Film Challenge 2, 1001 Movies You Must See Before You Die, from 1955, Patha Panchali. Song of the Little Road, I believe is the English translation. This is from Indian director Satyajit Ray, who I'd heard of through Wes Anderson on one of his DVDs, who's talking about the works of Ray and one of his opening sequences or something like that. And so I was already aware of this guy, but I don't know any other Indian directors, and so I'm assuming that Ray is one of those kind of legendary figures, and that he to India was much like Kurosawa was to Japan in terms of putting that country on the map as a country that could produce great films. And that's just an assumption on my part, but he's certainly a name that I was aware of before I really knew anything about any of the films that he had done. Patha Panchali is the first in the Apu Trilogy that follows the character of Apu as he grows from a young boy to a fully grown man. And I don't think it was planned as a trilogy. I think the first film was made, it was an adaptation of a book, and it was very successful. And so Ray followed it up with a sequel and then did another film as well. I'm not sure about the production history on that, but I have looked into a little bit of the production history of Patha Panchali, which there's conflicting reports. You know, some reports say that the film took him 6 years to make. Some say that it took him 3 years to make. But I think we can rest assured it took him years to make. It was his first film, and I love seeing first films from directors, particularly ones who seem to be notable. And boy, what a debut. I'm trying to think of a director, a great director, who's had a film this good at the beginning of their career. It was a low-budget affair, a lot of non-actors, all shot on location for the most part, and again, took place over years. You know, he really had to struggle to get this film completed. A lot of the crew had never made a film before. He'd never made a film before. So it feels like, from the stories I've read and heard, that it was a very fly-by-the-seat-of-your-pants production as far as just whether it would even get finished. There's a couple of characters in the film who are young, and there's a character in the film who's very old. And I read a good quote from Ray where he said that he had 3 miracles while making the film. One, that the little boy his voice didn't break, 2, that the little girl didn't grow up, and 3, that the old woman didn't die. And the old woman actually passed away before the film even came out. But let's get to the film itself. What's it about? It's set, I believe, in 1910, or around that kind of time frame in India. In Calcutta, I believe. I'm not too sure actually, but it's in a rural area, and it focuses on this family who are living in relative squalor in, you know, the countryside. They have their own little house, but it's run down, it needs repairs, and they've got nothing basically. And I don't know the names, and I was even listening to the Bengali in the film and trying to listen to the names as they were being said with the subtitles, and I couldn't kind of match it to the words, so I couldn't even guess at what the names of some of these characters are. So all you need to know about the family is that you have the mother, the father, the son, the daughter, and the old aunt. Now, I don't know if the old aunt was really the aunt of the family, or whether it was that kind of colloquial thing where it's like, oh, it's your Uncle Jimmy, you know. It's not really your uncle, but you just call him that because the old aunt goes to another place and they're like, oh, it's auntie, you know. So I don't know whether she was just an old woman in the neighborhood who happened to live with the family we follow in the film. So it's the Apu Trilogy. So I assume that this was going to be this kind of boyhood-like experience about this young Indian boy and his experience growing up, and this kind of coming-of-age tale. And it really wasn't that to me. To me, this was a film about a mother's struggle, told through the prism of a family in just poverty, basically, and just really struggling to not just make ends meet, but to eat, you know, to live, and how that plays into their lives, and, you know, the stresses that puts on the mother. The father is away a lot of the time. He's always trying to find work and get things done, but he's not really delivering, and he's a source of frustration for his wife. And it's kind of heartbreaking to see this relationship that might have been a really healthy and loving one just turn to disdain because she can't trust her husband to bring her money. Like, she's borrowed money from the neighbors, and they're pissed off at her that she hasn't been able to pay them back. And the actress who played the mother, I thought, was fantastic, and to me she really anchors the entire film because her character goes through a lot in Patha Panchali, and I might not even be pronouncing the title of the movie correctly, but it is what it is. But she really is the focal point to me. Apu isn't born until the first 20 minutes of the film. We get this kind of prologue almost, where her daughter, Durga, again, might be mispronouncing, I don't know, but Durga is about 5 or 6 in the first 20 minutes of the film, and then Apu is born, and then we flash forward a few years, and Durga is played by a different actress as a teenager, and we have Apu at like 5, 6, 7 years old. And Apu is, I mean, it's one of those, again, magic movie moments where you have this actor who came in to do this part and never did anything else again. So, you know, if you're into Indian films, you're never going to go, oh, it's Apu from, you know, Patha Panchali. It's one and done. It's just that one character in that one film, one performance, and he's just an absolute delight in the film. It's not like he gives a great performance, but I think that Rai got great stuff out of this kid. Just his reactions. I think some of the best moments of the film are just these close-ups of Apu reacting to things. We see the world through his eyes in some of these scenes, whether it's awe or whether it's joy or confusion, you know, or sadness. You know, we see those big expressive eyes. He's just such a cute looking young boy, just full of innocence, and just seems to be emblematic of that kind of innocence of youth that just makes him so interesting to watch, just as this, again, just this young kid who is just seeing almost everything for the first time and kind of experiencing a life as it unfolds before him, and seeing the struggles that his family goes through, but he always seems to kind of keep a chipper attitude about himself, as kids tend to do. But it really wasn't about him that much, and I feel like he's not even in the film that much. I mean, he is, but it's the mother to me. And even Durga, I think, is more of an integral character in the film. Now, again, the Apu Trilogy has been put onto these 3 films after the fact. So it's not like Rai sat down and said, right, this is the first film in the Apu Trilogy. I'm assuming that it got to the point where, wow, we can look at Apu in more detail in the next film. But as someone who had no idea about what this film was even about, knowing that it was part of the Apu Trilogy, which was released by Criterion last year, and that's how I watched it on Filmstruck. They got the whole box set there, all the special features to stream, it's awesome. So I was assuming, based on the Apu Trilogy moniker, that this would be, you know, again, a boyhood style film that really is a coming of age story of this young kid, but it's more about the mother, I feel like, and to some extent the daughter. And the actress who played Durga was wonderful too. I don't believe she did really anything else after this. And the aunt, the old aunt, is such a memorable character. And to be completely honest, when I see old people who have no teeth, it just makes their face look even more gaunt, and it's kind of disgusting. I kind of feel a bit repelled by it. But the old aunt was just such a captivating character. I would feel those kind of pangs of disgust, but also notice the beauty of this character. And she's 80 years old when she made this film. She came out of retirement to make it. She's done a couple of films in the 30s, and I mean, I don't think I've ever seen yet, anyway, to date, someone in a film who looks like they're literally on death's door. And she died before the film even came out, and a lot of people have made films and died before they came out, or died during the film, but she just looks like she's outstayed her welcome, basically. And like, her skin is so sallow, and her face is so gaunt. You can see the skull around the orbital bone. Like, she's so skinny, and I don't know, there's something haunting about it. But the spirit that she imbues into that character, which I can only assume really was part of who she was, is this mischievous old woman who's like stealing chilies from the mother's kitchen, even though she doesn't like it. And I like how the mother was very impatient with the old aunt, and even kicked her out a few times for being troublesome. And the old aunt would, you know, act accordingly and get pissed off and stuff, and almost act like a little kid, you know, where she's like mouthing to herself and whatever. Just such a memorable performance, and an unforgettable one, in fact, I think. When I think of this film, it's that smiling, toothless mouth that really jumps out at me among many of the images in the film. The countryside make for a great setting. The way they put together that house that's kind of half broken down was very good and believable of this poverty-stricken area. And the film was both criticized and praised for its portrayal of poverty. Some people think that it was quite rightfully condemning it, which makes sense to me, but some feel like it was glamorizing poverty. And that's an interesting thing. I think about that sometimes when I see, say, documentaries, actually more than fiction, where we see people who live up in the mountains in, say, Tibet or something. There's a documentary, The Epic of Everest, following one of the Everest expeditions in the 1920s. It's a documentary covering that trip, and they go through the mountains of Tibet, I think, on the way to Everest, and there's these people living up in the mountains with nothing, but the smiles on their faces seem so genuine and human, and you can't help but admire the human spirit. To find happiness in those ways of life that just seem so unimaginable to people like us, it really makes you feel so lucky. We have it so good. I mean, we have it bad in a lot of ways, but there's a lot to be thankful for. And that's what I kind of get out of this film. I admire the human spirit as portrayed in the film, particularly through the lens of the kids and the old aunt. But also, you know, it makes you appreciate things as well. So I think it works twofold in a positive way. The father was an interesting character. I wasn't sure what to make of him. Almost was reminded a little bit of my own father in terms of someone who was away a lot and always promising these things. You never know if he'd deliver on them. But at one point in the film, he's away for like 5 months, and that's a real key part of the film. And when he comes back, I really wish we'd gotten, or in between, I really wish we'd gotten confirmation of what he was really doing, because it's kind of left ambiguous whether this character was actually spending 5 months really trying to earn money for his family, or whether he was off gallivanting and not taking it too seriously, which kind of drastically alters the tone of the last kind of act of the film. I think is what he did when he was away for 5 months. So I don't know, a 1 minute scene of him maybe just really struggling to get a job or something would have helped the that aspect of the film, because I feel like his character, there's a bit of ambiguity there as to his true intentions. I think when he's with his family, he seems like a loving father who really wants to help them, and I suppose that should be your clue. But I felt like I needed like confirmation because I wasn't sure about him. But it is what it is. The younger actress who played Durga in the first 20 minutes of the film was actually the daughter of the actress who played the mother, and there's a wonderful interview with this woman who's now, you know, in old age pretty much, and on Filmstruck, I'm sure it's on the Criterion Blu-ray as well, and she talks about her experience making the film. And that was just if you got the Criterion or if you got Filmstruck, definitely check out that interview. It's a wonderful little piece that examines the making of the film through the eyes of a child, which I thought was really interesting, and how they had the literal daughter of the actress playing the daughter on screen. There's a nice kind of family connection there. Anyway, that was just a bit of trivia that I really liked about the film. The music by Ravi Shankar is just, I love it. I absolutely love it. There's something so different about it and so evocative about it. And the film just has these great moments, you know, just these visual moments that don't need any dialogue. And I liked the relationship that kind of existed between the mother and one of the women from over on the other side of town, where she was just really disdainful towards the mother because of how poverty-stricken she was, but also because her daughter Durga kept stealing fruit from their orchard, but also how that relationship changes as the film progresses and as the situation for the family that we follow gets even worse. We see that woman who was initially so kind of horrible really learns just how bad this woman has it, and the empathy comes out, and I liked that. It was a nice little arc for that very minor character, and just again showing the humanity of people trying to help each other out when they realize that their fellow neighbor, you know, man, woman, is in need of help and can't make it on their own. And there's just something so touching about that. I thought the film was wonderful. I loved it. I absolutely loved it from start to finish. Just again, great moments like Apu wanting to see the train and running, and yeah, it just celebrates life and condemns it in a lot of ways too. Again, when you look at how little they had, and there's some real heartbreaking moments in it and some really uplifting moments in it. You know, there's this, if you've seen the film, all I'll say is the moment with the bracelet at the end. I mean, that so many conflicting emotions. I'm almost tearing up thinking about it. I mean, this is what cinema is all about, you know, just telling stories that you get so engrossed in that you almost feel like you're there. And Satyajit Ray, I should say, I thought it was Ray, and I heard people pronouncing it as Rai, so I need to kind of get used to that because it just doesn't make sense, compute in my brain. Rai, you know, what a first film out of the gate, you know. And I could go on about it, but I feel like it's a film people need to see, which, again, spoilers, is it a film you should see before you die? Absolutely, without a doubt. It won't be everyone's cup of tea, but, again, people might find it slow-moving. Not much happening, but that's that minutia that I love, you know. There's a couple of bits I didn't like where there's some kittens, and they're just kind of throwing the kittens around the courtyard. I was a bit about that. And the bag gets dumped on a cat's head. I was like, I don't like that stuff, but it was what it was, I suppose. But yeah, the old aunt was unforgettable. Apu, his face, you know, there's just so much in that face. It's, you know, when I think of just boyish innocence. I'm going to think of his face in Path of Panchali because it just sums up so much in such a simple way, you know. And that's to do with getting those reactions out of child actors and then being able to capture those with the camera and then to put those into the film. So I'm really excited to check out the next two films in the Apu Trilogy because they're both in the book, or all three of the Apu Trilogy films are in the book. I thought it'd be better if I watched them individually, well obviously, but one by one and review them one by one so that I don't have in my head when I'm talking about the first film what happens in the second and third film, you know. I want to kind of keep that fresh, and I didn't want to power through the whole trilogy and then do the video, so this is my initial thoughts. I don't know where the next two films are going to go. Obviously it's going to follow Apu as an adult. I don't know what else is going to happen. I don't know where it's going to take me. I don't know if it's going to be like this film, if it's going to be completely different. I can't see it topping. I can't see either of the two next films topping this first one because this is a new instant classic to me. I just absolutely adored it. From start to finish, there's just something about it. It's a film that's alive. You know, it's not a film that I just watched and kind of took in, okay, this is happening, that character's doing this. I felt like I went into the film a little bit, you know, not to sound pretentious and wanky, but it just, the film was so alive, even, you know, now, 50, 60 years after it was made. Yeah, absolutely loved it. Leave your thoughts down below if you've seen it. Any thoughts on any more of Satyajit Ray's films? I'd like to hear if there are any notable ones outside of the Apu Trilogy you would recommend, and so on and so forth. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, let me know down below. The next two videos will definitely be my further reviews of the next two films in the Apu Trilogy, which I believe are The Unvanquished and The World of Apu. So, thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video.